Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open on an African safari being led by the British explorer Dave. He uses Bambi as bait to lure in a leopard, but Colonel Hammond gets impatient, so he shoots the beast and lets it get away. This makes David angry because now he has to go with a local guide credited as head boy and put the cat out of its misery. Hammond returns to camp with his head hung in shame while David tracks blood until coming across a white rhino carved into a tree. This marks the land of the Kanaka people, but Mr. Boy is too afraid to enter, so Dave continues alone because he has no respect for traditions. Quick Draw McGraw puts the leopard out of its misery with a 180 no scope when the Kanaka hunters suddenly show up like "You just killed my cat." Uncredited warrior accuses David of disturbing the spirit of the white rhinoceros, then points to a conveniently shaped mountain in the distance. He says with a perfect English accent that their leader enjoys executing the pale ones, then takes the pale one back to their village. We arrive during a ceremony where a young lady dances around suggestively while the men thrust their literal horns towards her. Her primitive mating call isn't exclusive to the tribe, as upon seeing David she begins throwing it at him while he does his best impersonation of a stripper pole. It begins to rain, so the high priest calls him into the cave and says, "Sorry about my niece, we've told her to stop grinding on the prisoners." We have some story time as the priest says that many years ago European explorers killed all their sacred rhinos, so white men are now the devil. They have a life-size statue of a white rhino that they roll around on skateboards and prepare to execute the pale one in its presence. When David touches its horn, time suddenly freezes and the wall of the cave opens to reveal a lush jungle. He enters to avoid death and walks around until a blonde cavewoman stumbles out of the bushes wearing a skimpy deer-hide bikini. This is when David assumes that the Kanaka killed him and this is heaven, until the terrified Saria bites him on the arm. She runs away, so David goes after her, but she does the same leopard strategy of ambushing him from an elevated flank. He just smacks the woman unconscious. Then when a tribe of Amazonians arrive, Dave insists that he was only trying to help her. That's not what the first Amazonian wants to hear, so she knocks out Glassjaw McGraw and takes him back to their village. They wait for their leader to finish stroking her own rhino statue, then tie David to a meeting stump at the congregation pool. Queen Kari speaks perfect English like everybody else and introduces herself completely naked as either a negotiation tactic or to counter bad odors. She decides that Dave looks like somebody she might want to breed with, so has her guards take him back to their village. Dozens of brunette women stand on guard while the same number of blondes are enslaved, but there are no signs of any males. Dave is thrown in a prison cell with Saria, who looks like she's chained to a wall, but he just reaches behind her back and now she isn't. She says that once a month a blonde girl is sacrificed to the white rhino god, so Dave asks why they don't revolt, but the queen apparently controls devils. Kari interrupts with a loud laugh because she's the only one who knows that the devils she controls are really just the Kanaka tribe. She separates the pair because she isn't keeping Dave alive so that he can bone a blonde, and throws Saria back in with the women. Even in a place like this she shines as being one of the dumbest and tells the leader of the slaves, Amyak, that David will save them. Yaki says not to put all your trust in the brunette stranger, but Saria says the man she only just met would never betray her. During their dinner celebrations, the blonde women prepare a large feast and dance to appease their brunette ruler. She has Dave brought out and shares her meal, which makes the slaves angry because now there's another mouth to feed before them. One calls it out, so Kari has her guards flip over the dinner table and forces the blondes to eat their food off the floor. Outspoken Barbie doesn't partake in the floor chicken and just hurls a breast at the queen, which is cavewoman for "screw you." Kari just walks up to the girl and rips off her pendant of the rhino god because it isn't going to protect her from a shanking. When she backs up to the fire, the queen pelvic thrusts Blondie onto the spit roast in what is technically a death by snoo snoo. She then demands the slaves continue the dinner celebrations, but Yaki says her girls are no longer in the mood to drop it like it's hot. Since slaves don't get a choice, they're forced to dance again, though it's less energetic this time as Barbie's corpse is being carried away. After dinner, the queen has David brought to her cave for some sexy time where her bathtub is apparently filled with strawberry milk. She lures him over with a drinking horn, then pulls the old bait and switch because it's Dave's horn that she really wants. He rejects her for sanity reasons, so she reveals that the blonde tribe were originally the slave masters and she was their slave. When she was a young girl, Kari escaped and returned with the Kanaka, who helped reverse the roles and installed her as the queen. She now gives them a single blonde each month as payment and offers to share the throne with Dave, but he rejects her crazy. Trying to whip him into submission, Dave just catches it and outmuscles her across the room because man's stronger. Before he's taken away, Kari flexes her bicep in his face as if to say, "What do you think of that?" But Dave doesn't really have an opinion. In the morning he's asked again in front of everybody if he still rejects her because apparently this woman has short-term memory loss. He looks over at Saria like, "I'm holding out for you, babe," so Kari locks him up with the European explorers who slaughtered the white rhino. Old man Ullo confesses that everything Kari said about them enslaving the brunettes was true, so these are some pretty evil dudes. During this time the blonde women are brought to the edge of the jungle for the monthly ceremony of choosing their god a new bride. One of the Kanaka squatting in the bushes watches the offerings being displayed like the rotating buffet at a sushi train. He whispers something to Kari, who then announces that the great white Rhino has chosen Yaki to be his new bride. The other girls get her all dressed up for the wedding, and once they've applied enough seashells, Amyak chooses Saria to be their leader. Sacrifices are made to sit atop the Rhino statue and wait to be taken while the rest of the girls say their farewells and leave. Once only Kari is around to witness the jungle tribe snatch their offering, and we never see Yaki again, so Saria goes to ask David for his help. She tells him to marry the queen and gain her trust, then he can betray her and take over the village. They lie together for a while, but when Saria leaves, Ullo pops up, having been hanging out between her legs. The next day David tells Kari that he will follow every order she gives him and fetches her fur coat like a good boyfriend. They then go outside, where the queen performs a mating ritual by dancing around in front of Dave, who already agreed to sleep with her. She throws him onto the ground, and a jealous Saria is forced to watch as the queen jumps her fellow's bones in front of the whole tribe. She then tells David to grab some food for energy, and the lovely couple prepare to take this party back to the strawberry tub. Saria has a sudden change of heart and tells David not to take the queen to Pound Town, so he instead tosses her off the stairs onto Hard Surface City. As punishment for this, David gets thrown back in the cave cell. However, Saria is prepared with seashells as the next sacrifice. She goes through the same routine as Yaki, which sees her spread-legged upon the false idol and bid farewell by her friends. When they've all left, the queen snatches Saria's amulet and uses it like a carrot on a stick to lure out the creepy guy in the bushes. During this time, David rallies the men and escapes by heating the shackle connecting him to Ullo until it can be shattered. They put the old man through so much pain that he dies, so he would have had a better chance at surviving if they had just crushed the hand. The men all set an ambush and wait for the blondes to return to the village, followed by the brunette guards. They then flank them from one side while the blonde women attack from the other, and the two sexes team up to overthrow their oppressors. The first Amazon gets bludgeoned to death while David makes it to Saria before she can be abducted by the horny masked man. He reveals the so-called devil of the jungle to be human, then knocks him out with a Donkey Kong-style double hammer fist. The queen tries to shank the sacrifice, but she fights back, so both the slaves and the jungle devils come out to watch this one. When Kari is about to nail Saria to the statue, David steps in and knocks the queen out with a single push into a rock. The slaves are scared of the rival tribe at first, but upon realizing they're just humans, they all chase them into the jungle. Once they're in the jungle tribe's domain, however, they use the trees to fight back against the larger number of slaves. Some just spend the battle trying to abduct women, while the queen wakes up and encourages the slaughter of every single blonde. The battle rages on until a large white rhino appears, thought to be extinct, but apparently Ullo didn't slaughter them all. Kari gets on her knees and assumes that the beast will be on her side, but it just impales her on its horn because this is a wild animal. Queenie dies while the rest of her supporters flee or get trampled by the rhino as it chases them through the jungle. The survivors go back to the caves, and Saria tells David that he must return to where he came from to fulfill the prophecy. They confess their love for one another, but upon touching the statue, David appears back in the high priest's temple like he never left. They're still about to pass judgment when the statue suddenly crumbles into pieces, which means the Kanaka curse has been lifted. The priest announces that they're now free to leave and orders the destruction of the temple, which has been their prison. As they're celebrating, the head boy says that Dave only entered the cave for a few minutes before walking straight back out. Now that they can leave, the Kanaka people dance off into the jungle while Dave goes back to his own camp to recover. Sometime later, more explorers arrive from London to go on an African safari, so Dave greets them as he'll be their guide. The one named Sarah is the spitting image of Saria, so he asks her what's the biggest horn she's ever seen. And the movie ends.